Easy English audiobook.
The Little Match Girl. Once upon a time, on a cold and snowy New Year's Eve, the snow fell gently over the streets of a bustling city. The air was icy and the wind blew with a biting chill. In this cold and unforgiving night, a little girl walked through the empty streets, barefoot and shivering. She was a poor young girl with nothing to keep her warm but a tattered shawl and a bundle of matches she carried in her hand. Her worn-out shoes, once belonging to her mother, were much too big for her small feet. She had lost them while running across the street to avoid a carriage. One of the shoes was nowhere to be found, and a boy had taken the other, laughing as he ran away. Now, the little girl's bare feet were red and numb from the cold. The city was alive with the warmth of holiday celebrations. Through the windows of the houses, the little girl could see families gathered around tables laden with food, laughing and talking together. The sight of the warm, glowing lights made her heart ache with longing. She walked slowly, her tiny body shivering with cold, and looked at the bundle of matches in her hand. "I must sell these matches," she whispered to herself. "If I don't, Father will be angry, and I cannot go home without any money." But no one had bought any matches from her that day. People were too busy with their own lives to notice the little girl standing in the cold. She hadn't eaten all day, and the hunger gnawed at her stomach, making her feel even weaker. As the night grew darker and colder, the little girl found a small corner between two houses. It offered little shelter from the wind, but it was the best she could find. She sat down, curling up to keep warm, and pulled her feet under her to protect them from the biting cold. She looked at the matches in her hand again, her fingers trembling. "If I light one of these matches, just one, maybe it will warm me for a moment," she thought. She hesitated for a moment, knowing that she was supposed to sell the matches, but the cold was too much to bear. With trembling hands, she took out a match and struck it against the wall. The match flared to life, and she held it close to her fingers. The little match girl stared at the tiny flame, feeling its warmth against her skin. As she watched the flame dance, she began to see something wonderful. The cold walls around her disappeared, and she imagined herself sitting in front of a large, warm stove. The fire in the stove crackled merrily, and the heat wrapped around her like a comforting blanket. "Oh, how warm and beautiful it is," she whispered to herself, a faint smile on her lips. But as the match burned down, the vision of the warm stove faded away, leaving her in the cold, dark night once again. The little girl sighed and looked at the matches in her hand. "Just one more," she said softly. "I'll light just one more match." She struck another match, and this time she saw a wonderful sight. Before her appeared a grand feast, laid out on a table covered in fine linens. There were roasted meats, steaming vegetables, and delicious cakes, all surrounded by the soft glow of candlelight. The aroma of the food filled her senses, and she felt her hunger fade away as she imagined herself reaching out to taste the feast. But as the match flickered and died, the vision vanished, leaving her once again in the cold and empty street. She looked down at the matches in her hand. She had so few left, but the visions had brought her a brief moment of comfort. She decided to light another match. As the match flared up, she saw something even more beautiful. A magnificent Christmas tree appeared before her, covered in glittering lights and colorful ornaments. The tree reached all the way up to the sky, and the lights twinkled like the stars. The little girl gazed at the tree in wonder, feeling a sense of joy she hadn't felt in a long time. "This is the most beautiful tree I've ever seen," she whispered, her eyes wide with amazement. But as the match burned out, the tree disappeared, and she was left alone in the dark once more. The little girl felt a tear slip down her cheek. The warmth and beauty of the visions had faded away, leaving her in the cold, harsh reality of the night. She struck another match, and as it flared to life, she saw someone she loved dearly. Her grandmother, the only person who had ever shown her kindness, appeared before her. The little girl's heart leaped with joy at the sight of her grandmother's warm smile. "Grandmother," she cried out, reaching towards the vision. "Please take me with you. Don't leave me alone here." Her grandmother looked at her with love and compassion, and the little girl felt a sense of peace wash over her. "My dear child," her grandmother said gently, "I am here for you. I will never leave you." As the match burned down, the little girl feared that her grandmother would disappear like the other visions. In desperation, she struck all the remaining matches at once, hoping to keep the vision alive. The matches flared up, filling the night with a brilliant light. The little girl felt herself lifted up into the warm, comforting arms of her grandmother. Together, they rose higher and higher, leaving behind the cold streets, the hunger, and the darkness. The next morning, as the sun rose over the city, the people found the little match girl in the corner between the two houses. She was still curled up, her face peaceful and her lips curved into a gentle smile. The bundle of burnt-out matches lay beside her, and the warmth of her last vision still lingered in her heart. The people did not know the beautiful visions that had filled the little girl's final moments, nor did they see the loving arms of her grandmother that had taken her away from the cold, dark world. But they mourned the loss of a little girl who had died alone on such a cold and unforgiving night. In the heavens above, the little match girl was now with her grandmother, surrounded by warmth, love, and light. She would never again know hunger, cold, or loneliness, for she was finally at peace in a place where dreams come true.